Hey friends, welcome back. I am Jason and I'm standing in front of just a small portion of the destruction of Hurricane Helene. Absolutely devastating at every place that was near a river, stream, tiny little creek. Oftentimes you didn't even need to be near a river, a stream, or a tiny little creek. Just had to be on the side of a mountain and it washed away. This was way underwater right now. Water probably would have been significantly over my head right now. Water was over that road over there behind me where that truck's going. Insane amount of water that flowed through here. The destruction was just incredible in some of these places. So as we walk over here to the river, what I'd like to discuss with you guys today is just key things that have come to my mind, lessons that I've learned, things that we can do to be more prepared going into the next natural disaster. Maybe it's a small scale, very localized disaster. Maybe it's something really, really big. I don't know what the situation is going to be, but I know that the more prepared we are, the less likely we will have to suffer through some of the things that a lot of people around here have suffered through. Now, some cases, in some situations, there's absolutely nothing you could do. I mean, if your house was down here on the river bottom, which there very well could have been houses, homes, buildings like this one right here. If you were here and the water came, wrong place, wrong time. There's just nothing that you could have done, and it would not matter how many preparations you had in place, how much you've trained. It just wouldn't matter if you were here. But let's discuss top things that I would consider. I would want to be prepared for, items I might want to possess, people that I'd want in my life going into the next natural disaster. I'm standing on the foundation of this building right here, if I had to guess. And this was, no slouch of a building. This was a steel building with pretty heavy equipment and stuff. Looks like a lift for cars, a car lift in there. Some sort of shop was here. Pretty heavy duty steel framed construction building. Just wadded up, twisted up like a tin can. Number one on my list. Number one on my list, top of mind, is going to be heed the warnings. If there is a emergency alert in your area for, let's say, flash floods, for example, heed those warnings. Chances are nothing's going to happen. It might just be a warning and that is it. And you'll go about your life and nothing bad will happen. But if you ignore those warnings and something does happen, it could be pretty catastrophic to you and your family. So if those warnings come your way, heed the warnings, do everything you can to prepare for them. For example, when the flash flood warning came to my area because of this storm, Hurricane Helene, I didn't ignore it. I stayed awake until the time had expired, the danger zone had expired. But I didn't really do much. I didn't gather my family up and have us all in the same room. I didn't have all the supplies necessarily all in one spot where I could easily access them if the floods came to my area. So I think in the future going forward, I'm going to be a little bit more, attentive to the alerts, maybe a little bit more responsive and do a bit more just in case. It's not going to hurt anything. The worst that could happen is you feel a little dumb for being a little over prepared. But I think a lot of people could have avoided a lot of disasters and catastrophes if they'd heeded those warnings. In some places, a lot of these places, they just didn't receive the warning. Cell phone towers were down, networks were down, communications weren't a thing. There was no siren to be heard, and there's just nothing they could have done but heed the warnings. That's the lesson learned. Next on the list would be getting alternative forms of communications in order. Radio communications, ways to back up, charge those communications, power stations, generators, whatever it is, ways that you can continue communications after the grid goes down. So for example, we discussed a second ago, cell phone towers were down. Everybody uses that. That's everybody's primary means of speaking to one another and seeing what's going on in the world. When that's no longer a thing, things become a little bit dark in the world. So having alternatives, having backups like Starlink devices, really, really handy in ways to power those devices is going to be pretty crucial. Having a stockpile of necessary supplies, materials, tools, all very important. And this stuff can be accumulated over the course of time. No one watching this video should freak out and go spend their life savings stocking up on rice and beans and bullets. But every little bit counts. But slowly accumulating these supplies and materials over time can end up with you resulting in the things that you need when disaster strikes. Like, for example, having a stockpile of fuel. If you're planning on using generators to keep the power on at your house, then have a stockpile of fuel. In these areas, there was no fuel. Fuel was non-existent. Finally did have access to fuel. It was being rationed out in a lot of these places, and the draw, the vacuum, the fuel vacuum was felt from 100 miles away. So having food, backup, a couple weeks minimum food supply for you and your family, because when things get, you don't want to be the person having to go wait in the lines because you're out of food, for example. You want to be able to be squared away, be self-reliant. That way you can be part of the solution and not part of the problem. Having some sort of emergency plan for you and your family is going to be next on the list. So, for example, oftentimes we have in our head this illusion that we're all going to be home together with all of our loved ones when disaster strikes. But chances are, most likely, that's not going to be the case. Kids might be at school. Wife might be at work. You might be at the vet with the dog. You might be at the grocery store. You might be out and about doing things and stuff when disaster strikes.
I was here. I was planning to open. It was like 7:30 or something like that. And I started to see trees fall down all around me. And I was like, okay, we got to get out right now. So we literally dodged trees on the way home and, just prayed. Like, okay, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if the restaurant's going to be there when we get back. And we couldn't make it back into Spruce Pine for another month and a half after that day because of the roads being completely washed away.
So having some sort of plan ahead of time so everybody kind of knows what to do when the event occurs is something that we should all work on. That's something I need to work on personally as well. As my kids get a little bit older and they're getting more involved in extracurricular activities and not always with me, it's going to be really important for us to kind of go over these types of plans and say, hey, we're going to meet here if this happens. And if that doesn't work out, this is all our alternative plan, also alternative meeting location, and having alternative ways of communicating with one another if primary means of communications isn't successful. Last one on my list today, guys, is just going to be building up your community, your prepper community, your preparedness-minded individual community filled full of like-minded people that are ready, willing, and able to help if needed. Because, really, what we've seen in this area, in all the areas that we've been to that have been struck by this hurricane, and it has been the local people pulling together and getting the stuff done. The government has not come to our rescue and solved everybody's problems. It has been local people with tractors and trucks and side-by-sides getting the jobs done. And being heavily involved in your community and having solid friendships and knowing who you can trust, that is a super valuable thing. You cannot put a price tag on something like that, because when disaster strikes, and inevitably it will, the SHTF, whether it be, global or very, very local, personal SHTF could happen. It's going to happen. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And having people that you can really trust and rely on is absolutely essential. So I would encourage each and every one of you to get outside of your bubble, get outside of your comfort zone, come outside into the sunshine, talk to your neighbors, meet some people, join a church, join a gym, befriend people around you. You won't regret it. All right, friends, thanks so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Please hit the thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and share the video. I'd be really grateful for that. In the comment section, you can let me know what I missed in this list of 5 things, the top of my mind list. What did I miss? Let me know. And until next time, it's very windy. What's the worst that could happen? Let's go on through.